the feeling like I'm back in my damn mind. Tell the feeling like I'm rapping a damn lie. Tell the feeling like my life is a damn game.
Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller TV series named IZombie Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins with a sexy girl named Olivia who was an accomplished surgeon, skilled, sweet, and with a bright future ahead of her. But everything changed at a wild party when she was suddenly attacked and scratched by a wild zombie who wanted to have a zombie baby with her. That single horrifying incident turned her life upside down. Olivia became a zombie, still sexy but not pregnant. She quit her job at the hospital and broke up with her boyfriend. Her mom and best friend were completely baffled, thinking she'd gone through some kind of emotional trauma. Olivia, of course, couldn't tell them the truth, that she'd turned into a sexy zombie. Olivia eventually landed a job as a medical examiner. Ever since becoming a zombie, she'd developed a craving for human brains. The job gave her easy access to exactly that, and she enjoyed the tofu so much. Her quirky co-worker, Ravi, found out about her situation, but instead of being scared, he was fascinated. He even started recommending different ways to prepare brains into tofu and treated her like some kind of alien science project, constantly asking for her diabetic blood samples. Olivia's relatively stable new life was disrupted when a cop showed up with handcuffs. That's when Olivia accidentally found out that whenever she ate someone's tofu brain, she absorbed their memories. The victim had previously been arrested for theft, and Olivia was able to blurt out the exact time and location of the crime. Her coworker quickly confirmed the details, and the cop was stunned. When he asked Olivia how she knew, her coworker cleverly claimed that Olivia was psychic. That made the cop, Clive, see Olivia as a secret weapon for solving cases. The next day, Olivia experienced some side effects from eating the brain. The victim had been a kleptomaniac, so Olivia suddenly had the urge to steal things and would occasionally trigger the victim's memories. This time, she saw the killer's face. It turned out to be a local weather forecaster. Olivia went to the police station to tell Clive, but along the way, she swiped a fancy stapler and a sleek photo album. Clive was skeptical about the crime suspect. It all sounded too unbelievable, but he agreed to check it out. They quickly tracked down the weather forecaster. Clive identified himself as a detective and showed the forecaster a picture of the victim. The man's smile instantly disappeared. He stiffened and told him to talk to his lawyer if he had any questions. That's when Olivia casually said, "Here's Johnny." The forecaster was shocked to hear that because that was exactly what he had said to the victim. Clive immediately suspected him of murder, but the forecaster had a solid alibi. He was live on air during the time of the murder, with countless viewers as witnesses. But how did the masked intruder fit into all this? The forecaster claimed it was part of a role-playing game with the victim, where they played the roles of a thief and a housewife. He also mentioned a name, someone who was close to the victim, suggesting they might have more answers. Olivia's kleptomania was getting worse. While discussing the case with her coworker, she wondered if she was the only zombie out there. It had been 5 months since her transformation, and there were no signs of a zombie apocalypse. Clive interrupted their conversation, joking that if he ever became a zombie, he'd be unstoppable. Of course, he was just kidding. He wanted Olivia to come with him to question the victim's close friend and see if her psychic abilities could dig up more leads. When they arrived at the friend's place, the woman gave them a suspicious look and said, "If there were 2 of them, that's gonna cost extra." Clive had no choice but to flash his badge rather than his smelly sausage. The woman switched to a long string of Romanian. Without thinking, Olivia replied in fluent Romanian. Clive was stunned. Olivia had no idea how she knew the language. It turned out she'd absorbed the knowledge when she ate the victim's brain. Following the lead, Clive and Olivia went to the victim's apartment. It was trashed. Someone had clearly searched it. Olivia found the victim's phone, which contained a voicemail from the friend. The message mentioned another girl, which meant there was a third person present at the time of the murder. Olivia triggered another memory. She saw the victim stealing a ring from the killer. The victim was pushed out of a window and held by her wrist, interrogated about the ring. When she refused to talk, the killer let her fall to her death. Olivia snapped out of the vision, realizing the killer was still after the ring and wouldn't stop until it was found. They returned to the friend's place, but the neighbor said she'd already left. The neighbor also mentioned the third girl's name. Olivia quickly found the girl's contact info in the victim's phone. At the same time, Clive received orders from his superior to hand the case over to someone else. But with the clues already becoming clear and the suspect likely hunting for a third girl, finding her could break the case wide open. Handing over the case at this point felt like having his hard work stolen. However, since Clive was low-ranking, he had no choice but to comply and handed the case over to his bearded colleague, Mr. Beard. Meanwhile, Ravi analyzed her blood and experimented with mixing it with different bacteria, hoping to find a way to eliminate the zombie virus. This gave Olivia a sudden burst of hope. She didn't want to spend the rest of her life as a zombie. Olivia dressed up beautifully, imagining that once she became human again, she'd get back together with her boyfriend. But when she found him, he already had a new girlfriend, and they were even playing a zombie-themed video game together. Heartbroken and dejected, Olivia spiraled into a deep funk. Her best friend couldn't bear to see her like this. With her friend's encouragement, Olivia pulled herself together. If she had to be a zombie, she was going to be a good one. She started by returning the things she had stolen, one by one. Then she went to the police station to see Clive, only to learn that he was no longer handling the case. Just then, news came in that the third girl had been found. Mr. Beard jotted down the address and rushed off, leaving Olivia with no choice but to return to the morgue. Coincidentally, Clive was there too. He suddenly remembered that the victim had mentioned something about eating pork. Olivia translated it from Romanian. It meant big beard. Clive's eyes widened in realization. No wonder the records for all three girls were so clean. It was Mr. Beard all along. He was the killer. Following handwriting traces left by Mr. Beard, Clive found the address. When he arrived, the two remaining girls were tied to chairs, and Mr. Beard's beardy colors were exposed. It turned out that Mr. Beard had been playing cards with the three girls the night it all started. He had accidentally lost his wedding ring and, terrified of his wife, became desperate to find it before she got home. In his panic, he killed one of the girls, and now the other two annoying ones were next. Just as Mr. Beard was about to strike, one of the annoying girls confessed that she had pawned the ring to pay for her tuition. At that moment, Clive and Olivia burst in. Mr. Beard fired his gun and tried to escape through the window. Olivia jumped onto his car as he sped off. Clive watched in horror as Mr. Beard aimed his gun at Olivia. But when he rushed outside, Olivia was gone. Olivia was clinging to the roof of Mr. Beard's car. She smashed the windshield with a single punch, grabbed the steering wheel, and yanked it hard to the side. The car veered off the road and crashed into a tree. Olivia was thrown from the car and Mr. Beard was knocked unconscious. Driven by primal hunger, Olivia prepared to devour Mr. Beard's tofu brain. Luckily, Clive arrived in time and snapped her out of it. Olivia mumbled a jumbled explanation of what had happened, and surprisingly, Clive believed her smelly bullshit. With that, the case was finally solved. Back at the morgue, Ravi removed the bullet from her without anesthesia, and without even needing stitches. Olivia had just helped the police solve a case, brought justice for a murdered girl, and saved two others. Being a zombie wasn't so bad after all. After 5 long months, she could finally get a good night's sleep. But that night, she dreamed about the day she was bitten by a zombie, but not in a wet way. One day, a murder case came up. The victim was a little-known painter. Olivia and Ravi had barely started examining the body when Clive approached Olivia for insight. But since Olivia hadn't eaten the victim's brain yet, she had nothing to offer. Ravi quickly scooped out a piece of brain. Last time it was brain with spicy spaghetti. This time it was brain pie. Olivia had been having trouble sleeping without a muscular man. Being a zombie also meant having zombie nightmares and sometimes zombie wet dreams. After eating the brain, Olivia suddenly experienced the victim's memories. She saw the painter's lover, and the smelly hormone yoga scene was pretty steamy. Olivia immediately relayed what she saw to Clive. They tracked down the painter's wife, only to find her together with the lover. But what the wife revealed next left them both stunned. The wife knew about the affairs all along. It turned out that the painter had many lovers. He claimed they inspired his work. And the wife didn't mind because she had her own romantic adventures. The painter and his wife had reached a strange understanding that neither Olivia nor Clive could wrap their heads around. Clive believed it was a crime of passion. Most cases like this pointed to the spouse. But then Ravi provided a profile of the killer, and it didn't match the wife at all. The killer was right-handed. Clive immediately began questioning people close to the painter. Olivia returned to the morgue, where her overly enthusiastic colleague had brought in a sketch artist to help her. Ever since Olivia started having nightmares, she'd been trying to find that person, but with no luck. As Olivia described the person's features, the artist kept struggling with the chin. Frustrated, Olivia grabbed the pencil and nailed it. That's right, she'd unlocked a new skill, sketching. And that wasn't all. After eating the painter's brain, she'd also gained some artistic talent. That day, Olivia was getting ready for work when suddenly someone sat up on the autopsy table. It was the person from her dreams. It turns out Ravi had posted the sketch online, and the zombie came to find her in this way. So now 2 zombies were finally face to face. The blonde zombie introduced himself as Blaine, who liked to take others' brains, saying that he was envious of Olivia's job since she had a steady supply of fresh brains, while he had to dig up graves to get his fix. Blaine explained the situation Olivia had seen in her dreams, clearing up her confusion. Just then, Ravi returned and began studying Blaine. Olivia wasn't exactly thrilled about Blaine. After all, he was the one who'd scratched her at that party and turned her into a zombie, and now he didn't even remember that accident. Soon, Olivia's visions kicked in again. This time, it was the boyfriend of the painter's mistress. After discovering their affair, he flew into a rage. Olivia rushed to the police station where she immediately identified the man from the vision among the mistress's boyfriends, but he had an alibi. He also shared a key piece of information. The painter had been involved with his agent's daughter. On top of that, the agent was drowning in debt. Now that the painter was dead, his art would skyrocket in value, a massive payday for the agent. However, the painter's wife claimed the agent had been with her during dinner at the time of the murder. But Detective Clive found out from the restaurant staff that the agent had left to withdraw cash from an ATM near the crime scene. So why would the painter's wife cover for the agent? Conveniently, she was hosting an art exhibition at her house, so Olivia and the team decided to check it out. Olivia slipped into the painter's studio searching for clues. A painting triggered another vision, this time of a young woman who was pregnant with the painter's child. Olivia confronted the agent, and it turned out the pregnant girl was his daughter. He couldn't stand the idea of his daughter having a child with his friend, a motive for murder. But Ravi pointed out that the agent's height didn't match the killer's profile. Even Olivia could have committed the crime if the killer had stood on the stairs. That's when Clive figured it out. It was the painter's wife. She had mentioned before that the painter didn't want kids, yet he was planning to start a family with someone else. She used the agent as a cover, then killed the painter herself. Case closed. Clive's instincts were spot on, but that wasn't the important part. After eating the brain of a romantic artist, Olivia's feelings for her ex-boyfriend resurfaced. She went to him, hoping to patch things up, but her sudden burst of affection left him confused. He had spent months trying to reconnect with her, only to face cold rejection. However, Olivia couldn't tell him the truth, so she had to shoulder the pain alone. The scene shifts to Ravi, who was truly something else. He'd even created an online zombie forum. Soon enough, someone uploaded a photo of a zombie near an abandoned shipyard by the lake. Olivia, still heartbroken from her ex's rejection, wasn't interested in the new zombie situation. Ravi suggested she eat some brains to cheer herself up. The latest body was Marvin, the victim of a hit and run. His case seemed straightforward, making him a safe choice for Olivia's next meal. After feeding, Olivia went home, where her best friend, a lawyer, was preparing for her first-ever murder trial. The victim was Walker, the CEO of a company. The alleged killer was a homeless man. Her friend asked Olivia to help her run through the case. But when Olivia saw Walker's photo, another vision struck. From Marvin's memory. Marvin had confronted Walker about a debt and then shot him. This was huge. The police had arrested the wrong guy. Olivia immediately told Clive what she saw, but Clive reminded her that he was only handling Marvin's hit-and-run case. And besides, there was no evidence, and he couldn't reopen a case based on Olivia's psychic visions. Frustrated, Olivia lashed out at Clive, which was completely out of character for her. Then it hit her. Marvin's brain was affecting her. It turns out Marvin was a psychopath, completely devoid of empathy and a professional killer. After returning home, Olivia's best friend showed her a video from her ex-boyfriend. In the video, he and his new girlfriend were all over each other. A normal person would have been heartbroken, maybe even cried their eyes out, but Olivia felt nothing. Looks like Marvin's cold-blooded killer brain was still messing with her. While her friend stepped away to take a call, Olivia sneaked a peek at the case files on Walker. The next day, Olivia and Ravi headed to the shipyard. He seemed to notice something was off about Olivia. Following a strange noise, they soon found a zombie. Olivia recognized the necklace around the zombie's neck. It was her former colleague from the hospital. But the person standing before her was no longer human, just a mindless, rotting corpse. Olivia didn't try to save her. Instead, she picked up a rock and hurled it at her. Luckily, Ravi stopped her just in time. He guessed that maybe this was what happens when a zombie goes too long without eating brains. Hoping to test the theory, he tossed some fresh brains at the zombie to see if it would regain consciousness, and decided they'd check back the next day. Back at the police station, Olivia shared what she'd seen in the files with Clive. Walker was a gambling addict, buried in debt. Could it be that one of his creditors had hired Marvin to kill him and then silenced Marvin to cover it up? Seeing how determined Olivia was, Clive agreed to visit the creditor with her. It turned out Walker had indeed approached the creditor, offering to sell his company to pay off his debts and asking for more time. If there was a chance of getting repaid, why kill him? The creditor had no motive to murder him, which suggests another dead end. Out of leads, they decided to check out Marvin's home under the guise of investigating the hit and run. The place was dark and unsettling, exactly what you'd expect from a killer's den. Suddenly, Olivia's visions kicked in again, this time showing Marvin being struck by a car. It was clearly intentional, a hit meant to silence him. Meanwhile, Clive found an old-fashioned handgun. The bullets matched the ones that killed Walker, so it really was Marvin who killed Walker. But then, who killed Marvin? When Olivia got home, she started digging into information about the car involved in the hit and run. Just then, her best friend stormed in, furious. She knew Olivia had snooped through her files. Thanks to the new evidence Olivia uncovered, the homeless man was released, causing her friend to lose an important case. But that wasn't why she was angry. What upset her was how Olivia showed no guilt, which suggests that Marvin's psychopathic brain was still at work. Her friend was deeply disappointed. At the same time, Clive made progress. Based on Olivia's sketch of the car, they quickly tracked down the owner, but he claimed he'd sold the car recently to an investor from Walker's company. When the police interrogated the investor, he denied everything. Confident the police had no evidence, he was cocky and smug. That's when Clive had a flash of insight. Maybe Marvin and the employer had met before. If so, there might be evidence in Marvin's car. Following the car's GPS records, Clive and Olivia questioned people along the route. Suddenly, a street cleaning truck passed by, triggering another vision in Olivia's mind. In the vision, Marvin was seen making a deal with the investor, and there was a street cleaner in the background telling them to move their car. Olivia described the cleaner's face to Clive, who immediately began searching for him. While Clive followed that lead, Olivia and Ravi returned to the shipyard to check on the zombie. The zombie showed no signs of recovering. Ravi decided to collect a blood sample for further research, but as he leaned in, he slipped and fell, snapping his leg. The zombie lunged at him, wanting to have a zombie baby with him. He scrambled to get away, screaming for Olivia in a chicken voice. Olivia stood there, emotionless, watching it unfold. Marvin's brain was still in control. As the zombie mistook Ravi for a girl and pinned him down, Olivia's survival instincts finally kicked in. She jumped down into the pit, went full zombie mode, and ripped the other zombie apart. Bloodlust still burning in her eyes, Olivia turned toward her injured colleague. He carefully calmed her down using his muscles until her humanity returned. After that, they disposed of the body together. Olivia was overwhelmed with guilt. Her psychopathic episode had nearly gotten her colleague killed, but he didn't blame her. Thankfully, Olivia was starting to regain her true self. Just then, Clive called. He needed their help. In the interrogation room, Olivia described the conversation she'd seen between Marvin and the investor. Through the one-way mirror, she spotted a man in a street cleaner's uniform outside. The investor's face paled as he remembered that day. Cornered, he finally confessed that Walker had planned to sell the company behind the investor's back to pay off his debts. The investor, unwilling to see years of work go down the drain, hired Marvin to kill Walker, and then killed Marvin to cover his tracks. Once again, Olivia had helped Clive crack the case. As for the street cleaner, it was Ravi in disguise. The real cleaner didn't remember a thing. The plan was to throw the investor off balance and pressure him into confessing. Afterward, Olivia mailed the hospital colleague's necklace to her mother. Watching the old woman break down in tears left Olivia with a heavy heart. Later that night, Olivia saw another video of her ex-boyfriend with his new girlfriend, happy and in love. This time, Olivia couldn't hold back the tears. The scene shifts to Blaine, the guy who turned Olivia into a zombie. Ever since he last saw Olivia, 2 former gang members had been looking for him. He'd been missing for months, and now they wanted answers. But Blaine wasn't the same person anymore, and that's when things turned ugly. Unlike Olivia, who has a steady job and a reliable supply of fresh brains, Blaine had to get creative. He hit up a local bar and seduced a rich lady. One thing led to another, and they spent the hormone night together. The next morning, the rich lady woke up from her wet dream but as a zombie. Blaine didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. In fact, he promised to keep her supplied with fresh brains for $25,000 a month, and she couldn't breathe a word about it to anyone. Left with no choice, she agreed. Blaine used the money to open a butcher shop specializing in gourmet dishes made with brains. Naturally, the brains came from the city's growing list of missing persons. He even recruited a crew of zombie underlings to handle the deliveries. But the zombie crew wasn't happy. While Blaine was raking in the cash, they were stuck eating scraps. So they decided to go into business for themselves, and their first target was the rich lady. They offered her a better deal, fresh brains at a lower price. But the lady, loyal to Blaine, tipped him off. When the crew returned to the shop, Blaine greeted them with a special meal made from premium brains. As they were enjoying it, Blaine suddenly pulled out a gun and shot them point blank in the forehead. He then dragged out 2 frozen human bodies from storage. Looks like he had some new recruits lined up. Meanwhile, Olivia picked up a new skill. That morning, Olivia showed up at her ex-boyfriend's place with 2 cups of hot coffee, hoping to apologize for the way things ended. Just as she arrived, his roommate was moving out, and his new girlfriend was already there making herself at home. Olivia felt a twinge of jealousy. There was no way she could leave those 2 alone under one roof. He needed a new male roommate, and fast. So she thought Ravi would be perfect, but he flat out refused. He wasn't about to live with a random guy. To change the subject, he brought up the day's new case. The victim was a member of an Asian gang, identifiable by his gang tattoos. The gang member was kicked to death. To make it harder to ID him, his fingers had been cut off. Olivia would have to eat his brain to learn more. Before Olivia could even finish her meal, Clive walked in. His face fell when he saw the body. He knew the victim. Clive told Olivia to skip the psychic routine. He already knew what happened. But Olivia's visions didn't care. Suddenly, she saw the man's memories, and what she saw shocked her. Clive was beating a gang member named Ray, accusing him of leaking gang secrets. Olivia couldn't believe it. After Clive left, she told Ravi what she'd seen and suggested that Clive might be a dirty cop working with the gang. Ravi didn't buy her smelly bullshit. He thought Olivia was just being paranoid because of the brain she'd eaten. Olivia decided to look into Clive's past. She visited the Vice Squad where he used to work, handling gambling and prostitution cases. She learned that Clive had made a serious mistake back then, which got him suspended and reassigned to homicide. That only made Olivia more suspicious. Next, she visited a video store owned by the Asian gang, hoping to find Ray from her vision. While waiting, Olivia spotted a poster of a cobra, which triggered another memory from the dead gang member's brain. The gang boss had captured Ray. That was bad news. Just then, the gang boss approached Olivia, asking how she knew Ray. Olivia made up an excuse and quickly dragged Ravi out of there. But as they left, Olivia spotted Clive sneaking into the video store. That all but confirmed it. Clive was in bed with the gang and had sold out an undercover officer to the boss. That night, Clive showed up at Olivia's place, demanding to know why she'd gone looking for his former partner. Olivia claimed she was just trying to help with the case. Clive explained what had happened with the dead gang member, but Olivia didn't believe him. Just to be safe, Olivia decided to plant a tracker on Clive's car. But as she was setting it up, a henchman spotted her. Panicking, she ran for her zombie life, only to crash into a homeless man. The impact triggered another vision. She saw the gang member being tortured and admitting that Ray was an undercover cop. Olivia had it all wrong. Clive wasn't the traitor. The dead gang member had been forced to Ray up under duress. As Olivia got up, she realized something else. She suddenly knew Kung Fu. Olivia hurriedly found Clive and told him everything she had seen. Upon hearing that Ray had been exposed, Clive immediately called his colleagues in the Vice Squad to begin a gang bust. He then explained the full story to her. Both he and Ray were undercover cops, and Ray had been sent abroad to transport a batch of illegal goods. Unfortunately, Ray's cover had been blown, and they had to move quickly to reach the deal location, rescue Ray, and catch the criminals in the act. Due to the danger, Clive refused to let Olivia join the operation. Back home, Olivia was still worried about Clive and Ray. She called and learned that the operation had gone smoothly, with all gang members captured except for the gang boss. But just then, Olivia heard the door open. When she checked, she was thrown to the ground by the gang boss, who thought she was a cop and intended to take revenge on her. Olivia, having recently learned Kung Fu, was eager to test her new skills. In a full-on zombie mode, she knocked the gang boss out cold. Fortunately, her brother arrived just in time to snap Olivia back to her senses. Otherwise, the gang boss might have become her next meal. Afterward, Clive arrived to arrest the gang boss. Olivia sincerely apologized, and Clive forgave her. Meanwhile, Olivia's ex-boyfriend tracked down Ravi. He thought Olivia was behind the whole thing, claiming that Ravi was looking to rent a place. Initially, Ravi refused to agree, but as they chatted, they realized they both shared an obsession with a certain game. The scene shifts to a girl who had an accident while skydiving, and Olivia and Ravi were busy figuring out how to prepare brain dishes. Just then, Olivia's best friend called. She had learned from a friend that a college buddy named Holly had been in a skydiving accident. Olivia then realized that the victim was Holly. The police had examined the scene and initially declared it an accident, but Holly's skydiving partner insisted that something was wrong. He pointed to a man, claiming Holly had tons of experience, so the problem must have been with the plane. Olivia looked in the direction the partner pointed and was unexpectedly drawn to a man named Lowell. Back at the morgue, Olivia stared at Holly's lifeless body, her heart heavy with sadness. Holly had been vibrant, adventurous, and full of life. Now she was just a cold corpse. Later that night, Olivia and her best friend looked through photos of Holly, reminiscing about their times together. Suddenly, Olivia experienced a vision of Holly's memory. It was just before the jump when Lowell had yelled at Holly in anger. To find out, Olivia would need Clive's help, but Clive was already tied up with other cases. Nevertheless, seeing her as a friend, he agreed to help. The next day, Olivia felt an uncontrollable impulse as she left the house. Instead of driving, she hopped on a bike and rode through the streets. Obstacles seemed to melt away in her path, and she felt completely free, like a bird soaring through the wind. She laughed joyfully. It was clear that Holly's adventurous spirit had rubbed off on her. Olivia arrived at the police station, where Clive had already started questioning Lowell. Unfortunately, they didn't learn anything useful. Clive then spoke with the other skydivers, only to discover that they all worked for a beverage company, and they were extreme sports enthusiasts, sponsored by the company. The situation was complicated. A man named Carson had started a relationship with one of the women in the group, but it seemed he hadn't broken up with Holly yet. Carson had begged Holly not to tell his new girlfriend, which triggered another memory from Holly. This time, Carson was asking Holly to keep a secret about a man lying in bed. Clive was reprimanded by his superior for privately helping Olivia with the case. The superior argued that the case had not been classified as a murder, so Clive shouldn't be involved. However, just then, Olivia walked in, and Ravi revealed that they had found traces of a sedative in Holly's body. This meant Holly's death wasn't an accident, it was likely a murder. With no other choice, the superior reluctantly allowed Clive to continue investigating. That evening, Olivia, as one of Holly's classmates, attended Holly's memorial service, hoping to find some clues at her home. Olivia entered Holly's bedroom and discovered a stack of blank prescription pads in a drawer. With these, she could easily buy prescription drugs at any pharmacy. The same type of drug used to sedate Holly was also in the drawer. At that moment, Olivia triggered another memory of Holly's. It was Carson who had handed out the prescription pads as Christmas gifts to everyone. Olivia called Ravi, urging him to find out who had used the prescription pad to buy the sedative. Just then, Lowell walked in. He wasn't bothered by Olivia's actions and instead offered to make her a drink. But something about the drink seemed strangely familiar. It was the signature zombie brew, and Olivia was momentarily at a loss for words. Lowell then confessed that he was a zombie too. The moment he first saw Olivia, he knew she was one of his kind. He explained that he had gone into zombie mode on the plane and had tried to distance himself from Holly. Once they landed, and he was sure he was no longer a threat, he went after the others. Looking back, it was likely the alcohol that triggered it. Every time they got together, someone would bring the alcohol, and this time it was Carson's turn. Clive and Olivia interrogated Carson again. With the prescription pad as leverage, Carson reluctantly confessed what he knew. He had accidentally discovered a scandal involving the beverage company. When Holly found out, she wanted to expose it, but Carson feared retaliation from the company. So, he told his new girlfriend, who was part of the company's management. The girl promised she would handle it. Clive quickly led a team to the girl's house, but unfortunately they were too late. The girl had already gotten word and fled. Clive returned empty-handed. However, Clive's superior wasn't concerned. The arrest warrant had already been issued, and the rest of the matter was no longer their responsibility. Clive took the opportunity to mention something else to his boss. A few days earlier, Olivia's ex-boyfriend, Major, had approached Clive, saying one of his students had gone missing. Clive had agreed to investigate, but now another student had disappeared. Clive found it suspicious and visited places where the students often went. To his surprise, the number of missing persons had been increasing exponentially. He asked his superior to look into it, but his boss wasn't interested, saying they were the homicide squad and they only got involved once there's a body. As soon as Clive left, the superior retrieved a jar of special hot sauce from his drawer. As a backstory here, the disappearances were all the work of Blaine. He kidnaps regular people, kills them, removes their brains, cooks them into delicacies, and sells them to wealthy zombies. Additionally, zombies' sense of taste has severely deteriorated, and only spicy food can stimulate their taste buds. That's why Olivia always adds hot sauce when she eats brain dishes. So, it's clear now that the superior has also become a zombie. Back with Olivia, Lowell showed up at her place. After their rushed parting earlier, Lowell couldn't stop thinking about it. He first gave her a bottle of limited edition hot sauce and then asked if she would go on a date with him. The scene shifts to Major lying on the morgue table, though he wasn't actually dead. It turns out that earlier, Major had gone to a skate park to ask around about a missing student. There, he unexpectedly ran into a burly man wearing the same shoes as his student. Major quickly stopped him, only to realize this man was a henchman of Blaine. Despite Major's strength, the man went into zombie mode. It didn't take long for Major to get a serious beating. With no money for a proper hospital, Major had to ask Ravi for help. Unfortunately, Ravi only knew how to do autopsies and had no clue about stitching wounds, so Olivia had to step in. But isn't it risky to let a zombie stitch up someone's head? Major suspected this burly guy had kidnapped his student. Meanwhile, the police called with a new case that needed attention. Olivia quickly finished stitching up Major and headed to the crime scene with her co-worker. The victim was a long-time fat hermit who had been found dead on his own stairs by a neighbor. From the degree of decay, it seemed he had been dead for weeks. Clive found a lot of colorful confetti and a birthday card on the ground. The police took the body away, and the curious neighbors crowded around, even snapping photos of the corpse. Seems like the guy wasn't too popular. Back at the morgue, Clive informed them the victim's name was Simon. Simon had a history of sending death threats online, so they were almost certain it was murder. In his profile, they found an audio recording of him threatening to release someone's personal information online. To solve the case, Olivia had to eat Simon's brain dish. Olivia couldn't help but curse under her breath. After a lot of effort, Olivia finally swallowed the liquefied brain dish. Suddenly, she found herself strangely interested in the donuts Ravi had brought. Now, zombies don't eat donuts, so this was clearly a result of Simon's brain dish. As soon as she took a bite, Olivia triggered one of Simon's memories. In the memory, Simon ate a donut, felt ill, and struggled up to the second floor to inject himself with some kind of serum. It seemed like he had an allergic reaction to something in the donut. Olivia told Clive about the memory, only to realize she had developed agoraphobia. She didn't want to be in public, likely because of Simon's brain dish. This was probably why he had become a hermit in the first place. Clive also got a lead. Simon's birthday was 4 months away, but what about the birthday card found at the scene? Olivia looked at the card and noticed a small mechanism. When opened, colorful confetti popped out. As expected, the experienced Clive could smell the scent of nuts coming from the card. The killer must have known Simon was allergic to nuts. Now, to find the killer. Since Simon was a hacker, they decided to check his computer. Under the influence of Simon's brain dish, Olivia easily accessed his computer and logged into a game. She discovered that Simon had a rival in the game. After some searching, Olivia tracked down the player. But when she saw the video, she realized the player was just a 14-year-old kid living in New York. He definitely wasn't the killer. Just as Olivia was frustrated by this, zombie Lowell showed up. He and Olivia had planned a zombie date, but Olivia had to cancel due to her agoraphobia. However, Lowell wasn't there to reprimand her. As a fellow zombie, he understood that Olivia was being affected by someone else's brain dish. The two chatted on the couch for a while, and just when the mood seemed to be heating up, Olivia suddenly noticed a dessert shop on Simon's computer. The donuts in Simon's memory were from that shop. Olivia quickly contacted Clive, and Lowell left, being considerate. Clive was dealing with another case. The victim was a delivery boy who lost the zombie's brain dish, and as a result, he became the zombie's next meal. Now he was dismembered, but what was surprising was the luxurious ingredients found inside his stomach. These weren't the kinds of things someone like him could afford. Clive visited a few upscale restaurants and eventually made his way to the meat shop run by Blaine, asking about the delivery boy. When Blaine saw the photo, he led Clive to the kitchen, but lurking in the shadows was a hand holding a cleaver. Things were about to get dangerous for Clive. Fortunately, Olivia called at just the right moment. Blaine, after looking at the photo, remembered delivering food to the rich lady zombie, who had never returned. Fearing exposure, Blaine eliminated her and sent her to meet zombie Satan. Clive then tracked down the owner of the dessert shop. When they heard that Simon was dead, they actually seemed happy. It turned out Simon had left them a bad review, causing their business to plummet. While they had delivered food to Simon with so many orders every day, they couldn't pinpoint Simon's address. Olivia didn't think they were lying. Since Simon loved donuts so much, she suggested they start checking places near his home. Sure enough, they found another dessert shop. Maybe they could find out Simon's address through them. Using Simon's hacker skills, Olivia accessed the shop's staff list and found the delivery boy who had brought Simon his food. Surprisingly, this was the same guy who had asked the police whether Simon's death had been painful. Under Clive's interrogation, the delivery boy confessed everything. It turns out, the customer service rep Simon had threatened before was the delivery boy's sister. Shortly after the threat, she couldn't handle the pressure and took her own life. To avenge his sister, the brother worked as a delivery boy for the dessert shop. On the anniversary of her death, he sent Simon a birthday card with nut powder in it. Clive and Olivia both felt sorry for him. He was once a brilliant finance student, but now his future was destroyed because of a piece of garbage like Simon. After the case was wrapped up, Olivia overcame the influence of Simon's brain dish. She met up with Lowell, and the two decided to go on the zombie date they had missed before. Meanwhile, Major, still recovering from his injuries, had been busy checking the security footage at the skate park. He found a photo of the person who had beaten him up. When Olivia saw the photo, she was shocked to find the person was sitting next to Blaine. It seemed like the missing children were probably connected to him. On another note, Olivia's mother had gone to Blaine's meat shop, where they were hiring delivery staff. She suggested her son apply for the job. Late at night, a group of young people were camping in the woods when suddenly a pregnant woman in tattered white clothes ran out, covered in wounds. By the firelight, one of the young men recognized her as Emily, the daughter of a local wealthy family. She had gone missing 8 months ago, and now her sudden reappearance drew the media's attention. The police quickly held a press conference where the boss shared the details. After emergency treatment, Emily's child survived, but she passed away. In an effort to solve the case quickly, the police set up a special task force, with the boss taking charge. In the morgue, Emily's parents came to see their daughter. They were convinced that Emily's death was caused by her boyfriend. To uncover the truth, Olivia ate Emily's brain dish, which triggered a surge of maternal instincts. When she saw Ravi's hair was a little messy, she gently helped him fix it. Her sudden affection made her coworker uncomfortable, so he quickly sent her home early. After work, Olivia went to the hospital, still influenced by Emily's brain dish, and felt a strong maternal pull towards Emily's child. At that moment, Olivia's mother arrived. She worked as a pediatrician and thought Olivia was there to visit her, but Olivia had other reasons. While mother and daughter chatted, Olivia triggered one of Emily's memories. In it, Emily's parents were against her being with her boyfriend. To stop them from seeing each other, they locked Emily in her room. Olivia immediately informed Clive, but since he was only an assistant member of the special task force, he didn't have the authority to steer the investigation. He and the boss proceeded to question Emily's boyfriend. He claimed that on the day Emily disappeared, he saw her get into a black truck and he heard barking dogs. Olivia, observing the interrogation, noticed that although Emily's boyfriend wasn't the killer, he wasn't a good person either. He didn't seem to care about Emily's death. Instead, he wanted to use their child to gain media sympathy. Olivia was furious and tried to convince Clive not to let such a person have custody of the child, but Clive couldn't do much. As the child's biological father, the man would legally be given priority for custody. Olivia had no choice but to walk away. At this point, Clive received a call from Major, asking him to look into the missing persons case again. However, Clive explained that he was tied up with Emily's case and couldn't take on more right now. The government didn't want any unresolved cases to be made public. What Clive didn't expect was that Major was sitting next to a reporter, and with that, the trouble began. Meanwhile, in the morgue, Ravi was trying to experiment with turning a rat into a zombie again. At just that moment, Lowell showed up to see Olivia, and Ravi took the opportunity to sneak a blood sample from him. But Olivia noticed that Lowell seemed to be losing interest in her. Instead, he was chatting happily with Ravi, and his affectionate gesture when leaving left Olivia feeling confused. Just then, Clive stormed in, furious, accusing Major of betraying him. It turned out that the reporter had twisted Clive's words and published them, accusing the police of only working for the rich while ignoring the deaths of ordinary people. As a result, Clive was demoted and now had to handle case documentation. However, there was a silver lining. He discovered hidden property belonging to Emily's parents. Clive took Olivia to the property, and in the basement they found a baby cradle, apparently handmade by Emily's parents. Despite their dislike of Emily's boyfriend, they had welcomed the birth of their grandson. The couple invited them inside, and Olivia looked at the family photos on the wall. It was clear they loved their daughter deeply and would never have harmed her. Just then, Olivia triggered another memory from Emily. She seemed to have been locked in a truck, surrounded by barking dogs, and she saw a man's silhouette through a gap. Olivia shared this with Clive, and based on the sound of the dogs, they deduced that the truck belonged to the Animal Control Department, whose vehicles were all black, which matched Emily's boyfriend's testimony. Clive urgently contacted the head of Animal Control and obtained the staff list, but none of the names matched the silhouette in Emily's memory. He also checked out the former employee of the department, but that one had been in prison for the last 4 months. Meanwhile, Olivia's maternal instincts kicked in again. That night, she invited her zombie boyfriend Lowell over, and after some intimacy, he coldly rejected her. Lowell confessed that he had eaten a homosexual brain dish, and so Olivia and Lowell spent the night happily as friends. The next day, Olivia, having recovered her spirits, couldn't resist the urge to visit Emily's child again, triggering another memory from Emily. It seemed like she had tried to jump out of a window, but two girls advised her against running away, warning that if she was caught by the couple, she would be punished. At the same time, Clive made a breakthrough. Expanding his search, he found a man whose physical appearance closely resembled the man in Emily's memory. The man's wife was the head of animal control. Olivia and Clive immediately went to the man's house. While they were discussing how to look for clues, the man opened fire on them. That was all the confirmation they needed. Clive quickly called for backup, and his superior said he would go in first to scout the area and signal them later. However, as soon as he entered the house, the man shot him. Surprisingly, the wounded superior didn't bleed, but instead triggered his zombie mode. The head of animal control surrendered, but the superior still shot her dead. Meanwhile, Olivia, who had stayed in the car, saw the house where Emily had escaped. Using her zombie mode, she broke the lock and rescued the two surviving girls. At the press conference after the case was closed, the superior claimed that the couple had created some kind of ritual, kidnapping girls and turning them into their playthings. They even pinned the recent disappearances on them. It's still unclear why the superior did that. After the case concluded, according to the law, Emily's boyfriend, as the biological father, would have custody of Emily's child. However, he didn't care about the child. He just wanted to use him to get on TV and portray himself as a tragic figure who had lost his lover. Olivia's maternal instincts wouldn't allow him to do that, so she gave him a good scolding. It seemed that he was scared by her words, and he finally gave up his custody claim, allowing Emily's parents to adopt the child. Seeing this, Olivia finally smiled in relief. On the other hand, after tricking Clive, Major had no choice but to continue investigating the missing student case on his own. He followed the man who had beaten him up, waiting for him to leave before breaking the car window to get inside. There, he found a brain dish. Before he could process it, the police arrived. Although they also saw the brain dish in the delivery box, the thug lied, claiming it was just cow brain, and the police believed him easily, arresting Major. Back at the station, he was locked up with a group of thugs. Since Olivia unexpectedly turned into a zombie, she's been surviving on human brain and using the memories of the brain's owner to help the police fight crime. Life as a zombie has been relatively uneventful. That is, until Lowell appeared, reigniting her hopes for love. Recently, because of her romance, she developed a liking for a relationship advice radio show. Suddenly, a scream blared through the radio, and Olivia and Ravi were called to investigate. The victim was the radio host, Sasha, who had been electrocuted after someone connected her microphone to a generator. No need to ask. This was definitely murder, though the method was rather clumsy. The police quickly zeroed in on a suspect, a listener who had called into Sasha's show that morning. The caller claimed her husband was cheating on her and even revealed the other woman's car plate number, cursing the mistress to a horrible fate. To make matters worse, the car plate number matched Sasha's. To find this listener, Olivia obtained recent call recordings from Sasha's assistant and learned that Sasha was very close to her agent, Jane. In the morgue, as Olivia listened to the radio recording, she prepared her lunch. Being a host of a relationship show, Sasha's brain was rich and flavorful, and when mixed with vegetables, it made for a delicious brain salad. Just then, Ravi called her into the back room. Previously, the colleague had been experimenting with rats, hoping to replicate the process of turning them into zombies. One rat had actually mutated, sending the colleague into a frenzy of excitement. This little rat could provide the key to turning Olivia back into a human. Olivia heard that her ex-boyfriend had been beaten up, so she rushed to check on him. Major hadn't been doing well lately. He had been researching the missing students and, as a result, his girlfriend had broken up with him, and the school where he worked fired him due to his past criminal record. Everything he did was in search of the missing students, but no one understood his pain. Although Olivia knew the missing students were probably being used as food by Blaine, she didn't want Major getting caught up in anything so dangerous. She urged him to stop investigating. Major agreed on the surface, but after Olivia left, he started searching for clues again. Meanwhile, Clive arrived at the morgue. He found a radio host who had been in a public feud with Sasha. The two had insulted each other on air, making him a potential suspect. However, upon meeting him, Clive discovered that the host and Sasha were actually on good terms off-air. Their rivalry had just been a staged act for ratings. Suddenly, Olivia triggered another memory from Sasha. In the memory, Sasha saw a man's wife who warned Sasha to stay away from her husband. Could this wife be the listener who called in? But the man claimed his wife was a foreigner with a limited vocabulary of 50 words and couldn't possibly have made the call. Olivia had no choice but to leave and continue listening to Sasha's recordings for more clues. This time, Olivia triggered a memory of Sasha arguing with her agent Jane. But weren't they supposed to be good friends? Olivia and Clive decided to find Jane and ask her about the fight. It turned out that Jane had always wanted to move from behind the scenes to the spotlight and become a radio host. She had been sending her audition tapes to various stations, hoping for a break. When Sasha found out, they had a huge argument. Soon after, they made up, and Sasha even helped Jane land a promotion. It was chilling to discover that the police chief was a zombie. Not only that, but he was also a lackey of Blaine. Previously, he had covered up the truth about the brain-eating murders, pinning many missing persons cases on an innocent couple. Thankfully, he was now racked with guilt and planned to confront Blaine. But being a zombie himself, he couldn't just waltz in and out at will, and since Blaine provided the brains he ate, the police chief was under his control. It wasn't a pleasant position to be in. The next day, Olivia continued listening to the recordings and noticed that one of the advertisements sounded exactly like the listener. This was strange. From her conversation with Jane, Olivia learned that the voice on the advertisement was recorded by Sasha's assistant. Olivia and Clive hurried to find the assistant. Coincidentally, the man Olivia had seen in the memory yesterday turned out to be the assistant's boyfriend. It seemed she also had a motive for murder. In the interrogation room, the assistant admitted that she had called into the radio show hotline, but her intention was only to get Sasha off the air. However, she couldn't understand how the advertisement from a store that had been out of business for over a year could suddenly appear in the latest program. Just then, Olivia had an epiphany. Sasha's program ads had always been handled by Jane. Maybe it was Jane who reintroduced the old advertisement to mislead the police investigation. At that moment, Jane's voice came over the radio. She had taken over Sasha's spot, finally becoming the new host, ready for her career to take off. But just as quickly as it had started, it was over. The police arrived, and Jane knew her dream had crumbled. She let everything out. It turned out that Sasha had blocked Jane's career, preventing her from being hired by any station by having the radio industry blacklist her. As a result, Jane had no choice but to continue working as Sasha's agent. While Sasha's actions had been sly and underhanded, Jane's climb to the top through murder was even more unforgivable. Another tragic story came to a close. The next morning, Olivia woke up in Lowell's arms, enjoying the brain breakfast he had prepared for her. But then she saw Blaine standing downstairs, and a vision flashed in her mind. Through his shoes, Olivia recognized the brain's owner. It was one of Major's missing students, suggesting that Lowell might have bought his brain from Blaine. After finishing the breakfast Lowell made for her, Olivia experienced the memories of the brain's owner. He had been brutally killed by Blaine, and at that moment, Blaine appeared downstairs at Lowell's apartment. Olivia quickly hid her face. When she saw Blaine's lackey and the pile of brain takeout in the car, it all clicked. The recent cases of missing persons were all linked to Blaine. He had killed these people and turned their brains into takeout for wealthy zombies. Lowell was one of his clients. Olivia confronted Lowell, and the two had a big argument. Despite Lowell's insistence that he didn't know the source of the brains, Olivia was disappointed in him. Furious, Olivia went to the morgue and told Ravi about Blaine and Lowell. Olivia suspected there was a mole in the police station, as the bodies that should have been taken by Blaine were instead found in the couple's house. Just then, they got a new case. The victim, Adam, worked as a shooting coach at a gun range. He had been shot with a bullet, and the police deduced that the shot came from a tree across from the scene. Clive and Olivia interviewed Adam's students, who suspected his ex-wife. It turned out that Adam had been a sniper in the Special Forces and suffered from PTSD after the war. At this time, his wife had filed for divorce and fought him for custody of their daughter. The victim today had actually been shot at a real-life CS shooting range. After Olivia ate Adam's brain, she and Clive interrogated his ex-wife and her current husband, Sean. However, both had alibis. Sean was in a meeting at the time of the murder, and his ex-wife was at the park with their daughter. But when Olivia saw their daughter, it triggered Adam's memories. In the vision, Adam fought with Sean over custody, and his ex-wife chased him out with a kitchen knife. It was clear that the ex-wife's family wasn't friendly toward Adam. That night, Olivia tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Eating Adam's brain had caused her to develop PTSD as well. Overwhelmed, Olivia went to the shooting range. Due to the effects of Adam's brain, Olivia became a sharpshooter. Just as she was about to get her 5th kill, she noticed a bullet casing on the ground. But something didn't add up. According to the bullet's trajectory, if the shooter was standing there, they'd have to be at least 4 meters tall. Meanwhile, Major was still investigating the missing persons cases. The last time he found Brain in a zombie lackey's car, he had no idea about zombies. So he searched online and mistakenly believed that eating brains was a way to enhance physical strength. He went to a gym and hinted to the trainer that he wanted to buy some human brains. The trainer had no idea what he was talking about. Coincidentally, one of the zombie lackeys was also at the gym, overheard Major's conversation, and reported it to Blaine. Looks like Major is in trouble again. That night, Lowell arrived at Olivia's place, looking downcast and hoping for her forgiveness. To show his sincerity, he had dug up a brain from a grave. He confessed that he didn't know the brains provided by Blaine came from those children and apologized deeply. Lowell's heartfelt monologue touched Olivia. Blaine had harmed so many people, and it was time to stop him from causing more damage. Together, they planned to eliminate this evil zombie. Earlier, Olivia had discovered a sniper rifle at Adam's house, which would come in handy. Lowell would lure Blaine out, and Olivia would take the shot from a distance. Meanwhile, Ravi was still worried about turning into a zombie after being bitten by the zombie rat. But since he didn't feel the urge to eat brains, he asked Olivia about the process of becoming a zombie. After confirming he hadn't mutated, he realized that the virus could only spread within the same species. Just then, Clive entered the room. He had been investigating Sean's company and discovered that they were working on drone technology for urban delivery services. However, someone had mounted a handgun onto the drone, and operating it was surprisingly easy. This explained why the bullet casings had appeared in that spot. Sean had claimed he was in a meeting during the time of the murder, but he could have easily used the drone to commit the crime. The police soon found evidence on Sean's computer. When Sean realized his secret was out, he tried to flee, but Olivia caught him effortlessly. The case was finally closed. Back at Major's place, he found a hammer on the table when he got home. Before he could figure out what was going on, he was suddenly attacked by the zombie lackey hiding in the shadows. In a panic, Major shot 3 times at the lackey's chest, causing him to collapse. Major quickly called Clive and confessed that he had killed someone, but when they arrived at the room, the body was gone. It looks like the zombie lackey didn't die without a shot in the head. Meanwhile, Blaine showed up as expected, and Olivia had set up the sniper rifle in a building across the street. But when the moment came, Olivia hesitated. Just then, Lowell's mind flashed with images of Blaine's brutal killings. Seeing Olivia hesitate, Lowell grabbed a knife and charged at Blaine. But the zombie noticed and blocked the knife, raising a gun to Lowell's head. Unfortunately, Olivia's moment of mercy cost her the life of her lover. Olivia was brought into the police station as a suspect. The police chief entered and said the autopsy report showed Lowell had died by suicide, but Lowell had clearly been murdered by Blaine. Why would the police chief say it was a suicide? Meanwhile, Clive had found Blaine's lackey, the same one Major had killed earlier. But strangely, the lackey didn't seem to have any signs of being shot. He even accused Major of attacking him over a pair of shoes and following him into his car, claiming Major was the real crazy one. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep, and the image of Lowell's death kept haunting her. In a daze, she went to the morgue, where Ravi revealed something even more shocking. It turned out that the police chief had ordered the autopsy report to be changed to a suicide. It's now clear that the police chief was covering for Blaine. Olivia just wanted to move on from the tragedy and get back to work as usual. Coincidentally, there was another body in the morgue, a reporter who had previously covered a story about Clive. This reporter was also an alcoholic, but Olivia didn't have time to care. If you've got your own troubles, why not try a brain salad? It might help you forget all your worries. After eating the brain, Olivia saw the reporter's memories. In the vision, a man in black was forcefully unlocking the reporter's phone with her fingerprint, likely searching for something. Clive and Olivia immediately tracked down the reporter's boss, who revealed that the reporter had been investigating a murder at a university. The boss handed them a notebook full of names, including the killers. One of the names was the killer's roommate, but they couldn't get any useful information from the roommate. Following the clues, Clive and Olivia found the killer and learned that he was a big fan of drinks from the beverage company. Olivia suddenly remembered that the reporter's notebook had a note mentioning M2, which could be an abbreviation for the beverage company. In earlier episodes, Carson from the beverage company had mentioned that their drinks could cause violent tendencies. Could it be that the reporter was investigating the company's drinks and got killed for trying to expose the truth? Clive thought it was just speculation, but to investigate the company, they would need concrete evidence. As the investigation deepened, it was revealed that the notebook didn't record people's names, but rather locations. In those places, there had been violent incidents caused by people going crazy after drinking beverages from the beverage company. One of these places was Lake Washington, where Olivia herself had turned into a zombie. Finally, the mastermind was found, and Olivia was thrilled. Back at the office, Clive showed Major a photo of the zombie lackey. Major couldn't believe it. He was sure he had shot the man, but now he was alive and well. The truth was in front of him, and Major started to question his own sanity. He packed his bags, ready to check into a psychiatric hospital. Olivia, however, believed that it wasn't the right time to tell Major about the zombies. Going to the hospital might actually be the safest option for him. At the hospital, Major started telling the other patients about killing the zombie lackey. One of them turned to him and said they were zombies. Olivia attended a party, and during the event, people suddenly went wild. Olivia herself ended up turning into a zombie. What caused this sudden madness? The answer finally came. It was a problem with the beverages from the beverage company. Furious, Olivia stormed into the company's headquarters to confront the boss, accusing him of continuing to sell the faulty drinks despite knowing the dangers. The boss, however, didn't care at all. He even instructed the receptionist to call security and have Olivia thrown out. Frustrated, Olivia went to a bar, and the brain of an alcoholic soon kicked in. That's when a man named Mike approached her. He claimed to be the reporter's informant, also investigating the beverage company, and said there was a deep cover informant within the company who had documents that could expose them. Olivia noticed that the reporter's notebook was filled with yoga class notes, but her body didn't seem like it belonged to someone who practiced yoga regularly. Olivia followed the trail to the yoga studio where she unexpectedly ran into the receptionist. It turned out the receptionist was the informant. Olivia promised that if she handed over the documents to the police, she would guarantee the receptionist's safety. The receptionist pretended to agree, but then slipped away. Olivia rushed out after her, only to be knocked out cold by Mike, who was waiting outside. When Olivia woke up, she found herself and the receptionist tied up on a yacht. Mike took the USB drive off the receptionist's keychain, slipped it into his wallet, and tossed both the drive and the rocks tied to their feet into the ocean. Olivia turned to look at herself. She was tied to a rock too, but Mike wasn't in a hurry. He toyed with Olivia, treating her like prey, even tasting her diabetic blood. That was probably the worst thing he could have done. Just as Mike was about to make his move, Olivia snapped into full zombie mode. She grabbed a large rock and smashed it into Mike, sending him flying into the sea like a giant Barbie toy. Then, she used the yacht to perform a sharp drift right toward him. The sea instantly erupted with blood, but that night, Mike was washed ashore by the waves, and when Olivia looked at him, she saw his eyes had turned bright red. The scene shifts to the psychiatric hospital where a fellow patient told Major that the person he had killed was actually a zombie. However, the fellow patient is soon found dead in the bathtub, with clear wounds on his wrists. It seemed that he had been silenced for revealing the secret about zombies. Clive tracked down the patient's name, Scott, and found a sharpened toothbrush, which appeared to be a suicide. However, Ravi, based on the color of the blood in the bathtub, concluded that he had been murdered. Clive and Olivia went to find the first person to discover the body, and surprisingly, it was Major. Major explained that when he was looking for Scott, he saw someone nearby who was also part of the group and wasn't just an ordinary friend of Scott's, so that person had some suspicion. Clive learned that Major had never won a chess game against Scott, so Major was also a suspect. But in a psychiatric hospital, everyone is a suspect. Next, they went to speak with Scott's primary doctor. She explained that Scott had been admitted due to paranoid delusions. He claimed he could speak to demons, and the root cause of these delusions seemed to be the violent incident at Lake Washington, where he had been present. After learning this, Olivia went back to visit Major. During their conversation, Major asked about the party at Lake Washington because Scott had said he saw zombies there and even filmed a video, sending it to a friend at a radio station. Olivia pretended she didn't know anything about it. Olivia then rushed to check Scott's belongings but didn't find his phone. However, she did find a photo of Blaine in the visitor log. What could Scott's death have to do with Blaine? Ravi examined Scott's body and determined that the cause of death was an overdose of antidepressants. In psychiatric hospitals, some patients refused to take their medication and hide it, so both staff and patients could easily get hold of extra antidepressants. Ravi advised Olivia to take some medication first, then eat Scott's brain, or else she might struggle with the brain from someone who had consumed so many drugs. Sure enough, after eating Scott's brain, Olivia began hallucinating at the party that night, seeing little demons talking to her from a bag of potato chips. At that moment, Major knocked on her door. He said he had been discharged from the hospital but didn't dare return home, so Olivia reluctantly invited him to stay the night. The police chief met with Blaine and informed him about the case of Lowell, mentioning that Olivia and Lowell were in a relationship. He suggested that Olivia might have been involved in the plot against him. Blaine then went to the morgue under the guise of asking about a zombie antidote, trying to test Olivia. Ravi advised him to drink a beverage from the beverage company and then take a blood sample, effectively asking Olivia to poison Blaine. Olivia caught on immediately and poured the drink into a cup, handing it to him. However, Blaine was prepared. He insisted Olivia drink first, and only after seeing that she was fine did he drink the rest of it. Neither of them showed any strange reactions, and Olivia pretended to reveal the latest developments in the case, mentioning that Scott had filmed the zombie at the party. After Blaine left, Ravi breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that Olivia hadn't poisoned him. Then, the famous weather forecaster came to the morgue to identify Scott's body. He claimed Scott had sold him drugs. Olivia asked if he had received the video Scott sent. The forecaster said he hadn't, but he knew where Scott hid his valuable possessions. He then took Olivia to Scott's place, where they found Scott's laptop hidden inside a speaker. Unfortunately, the video Olivia was looking for wasn't on the laptop, but the forecaster suggested they use the computer to track the phone. Not long after they left, Major arrived at Scott's place but couldn't find the phone. He heard noises downstairs and found that Blaine and his lackey had also arrived. The two of them began dousing the place with gasoline and set it on fire, destroying the house. This meant the zombie video would be lost in the flames. Major, seizing the opportunity, climbed into Blaine's trunk. When he emerged, he found Blaine's meat processing lair. Meanwhile, Olivia managed to track down the phone's approximate location. They soon spotted a nurse from the psychiatric hospital leaving the building. Olivia immediately snuck into his room, and by following Scott's ringtone, she successfully located the phone along with several bags of drugs. Olivia called Clive and lied, claiming she had seen the nurse stealing from patients and hiding the stolen goods in the toilet at his home. However, without a warrant, the police couldn't do anything. In a clever move, Olivia turned the volume of the sound system to the max, then called the police as a neighbor, reporting a noise disturbance, and placed the drugs in a very obvious spot on the windowsill. Sure enough, not long after, the nurse was brought in for questioning. Terrified, he swore he hadn't killed anyone and admitted that months ago he had caught Scott in a sexual encounter with his primary doctor, and Scott had used drugs as hush money. Clive and Olivia immediately went to find the doctor, and under immense pressure, she finally confessed that she had killed Scott. It turned out that her husband was impotent and she had desperately wanted a child. But when she found out she was pregnant, Scott had threatened to expose her if she didn't get rid of the child. To protect the child, she had no choice but to kill Scott. With that, the case was closed. While preparing dinner, Major suddenly kissed Olivia and asked why she couldn't be with him. Olivia told him the truth. She had turned into a zombie. Major didn't blame her, and Olivia finally felt a sense of relief. The next day, Olivia continued to research Scott's phone, but couldn't figure out the password. Meanwhile, the forecaster kept repeating his catchphrase. Then, the TV started airing his weather forecast show. Olivia looked at him, who immediately disappeared. Olivia suddenly realized that the forecaster had always been a creation of Scott's brain, a figment of her imagination meant to help her. So, she tried entering the forecaster's catchphrase, 6317, and the phone actually unlocked. Olivia found the video from Lake Washington. The footage of zombies eating people was horrifying, and then there was a shocking clip of her own zombie self gnawing on the human brain. This was unbelievable. Just then, Major rushed in, and Olivia asked him about what happened the previous night. However, Major looked completely confused. It turned out that the Major she had seen the past couple of days was just another hallucination caused by the brain she had consumed from Scott, the drug addict. In other words, Major still didn't know she was a zombie. After confirming they were alone, Major pulled out a few takeout bags. He had just stolen a delivery intended for Blaine. He was sure that the bags contained human brains, confirming that zombies were real, and he was determined to kill them all. In the post-credits scene, the zombie rat that Ravi had experimented on turned back to its original gray color, which might suggest that they might have found a cure for zombies. The scene shifts back to Mike, who had drunk Olivia's blood not long ago, being washed ashore by the sea, having turned into a zombie. Stumbling onto the road, he was found by 4 young people who had been drinking and driving a stolen car. They were terrified to find that Mike had no pulse, and to avoid getting caught, they buried him. Just as they were about to leave, the beverage hand emerged from the dirt. Clearly, he wasn't dead. He suddenly twisted a girl's neck from behind, and the remaining 3 ran for their lives. 2 weeks later, a guy walking his dog discovered a severed foot belonging to the girl. Zombie Olivia and Officer Clive quickly arrived at the scene. After investigating, they learned the girl's name was Kimber, the cheerleading captain at Maynard High School. While Clive was distracted, Ravi made a startling discovery. Most of Kimber's brain was missing, likely taken by a zombie. Olivia thought it could be Blaine and told Clive about what had happened with Major earlier. Now, the priority was to find a way to deal with Blaine before Major got into danger. Back at the morgue, Olivia drank Kimber's remaining brain mixed with chocolate to determine if her death was zombie-related. Ravi had also bought a toy for the zombie rat, but to their surprise, the rat, which had been showing hope for a cure, died for no reason. There weren't many contaminated drugs left, only enough for one more experiment. Under the influence of Kimber's brain, Olivia became unusually optimistic, encouraging Ravi to keep going and not give up. Afterward, she and Clive questioned Kimber's friends. Olivia used her newfound optimism to infect the girl with a positive attitude, and the girl finally opened up, showing them the private messages she had exchanged with Kimber the night she died. Clive noticed the cheerful background music in the messages, which came from a band. Following the lead, Clive and Olivia found the warehouse where the band rehearsed. As soon as they arrived, the bassist fled in a panic, though he tripped and fell. It was clear that all three members of the band were hiding something. Despite their claim that they were all rehearsing together the night Kimber disappeared, they couldn't recall the exact date of her disappearance. Olivia suddenly experienced a vision of Kimber's memories, where she was in a car with the band, and it seemed like she had a special relationship with the bassist. Meanwhile, Clive found a clue from the warehouse's security footage. On the night Kimber disappeared, 5 cars had passed by, one of which was a stolen vehicle. Clive suspected that the band had stolen the car and left the scene. Together with Olivia, they returned to the warehouse and found the bassist dead. Although Kimber's death might be zombie-related, the bassist's brain was intact, which meant it couldn't have been a zombie attack. To investigate the cause of death, Olivia ate the bassist's brain. As she prepared to add some hot sauce, Ravi revealed he had recreated the zombie rat. This time, he intended to reduce the dose of the cure. Just then, Clive entered with the bassist's phone and showed it to Olivia. There was a message from a killer, but the number had been disconnected. Another important clue was that the bassist's time of death was recorded as 8:30 p.m. the previous night, while surveillance footage showed Carl's car leaving the warehouse at 8:37 p.m. It seemed Carl had plenty of motive, and after Olivia consumed the bassist's brain, she had the bassist's memory. Carl had warned the bassist not to call the police, but what exactly had happened? The band's drummer arrived at the police station, scared that the killer would seek revenge. She confessed to the 4 of them driving drunk and hitting someone, but the person didn't die. Instead, he came back to life and killed Kimber. Clive thought this sounded a bit far-fetched, but he still brought in a sketch artist. Unfortunately, this artist had a conflict with Olivia back in episode 2, so Clive had to ask Olivia to step out. Afterwards, the drummer received a text from Carl and secretly snuck out of the station. Back at the morgue, Olivia got more bad news. A 91-year-old woman had been completely drained of her brain, clearly another zombie-related murder. At that moment, Olivia received a sketch of the killer. It's the same Mike who had once tried to kill her. Olivia realized that she might have infected him on the boat and turned Mike into a zombie. When Olivia got home, she found her best friend lying on the floor. After checking, Olivia confirmed she was still alive. Meanwhile, Mike was in the kitchen cooking dinner. He told Olivia how he had eaten the brain of his 91-year-old aunt due to hunger. He hated Olivia for what she had done to him. The two of them started fighting, and Mike's eyes turned red as he switched into zombie mode. He stabbed Olivia in the stomach with a knife, even piercing her hand. As he was about to drive the knife into her brain, Olivia switched into zombie mode too, shoving Mike aside and stabbing him in the brain with the knife. The whole scene was witnessed by Olivia's best friend, who had just woken up. Olivia was forced to reveal that she had turned into a zombie. Her friend was horrified and couldn't accept the truth. While Olivia was getting her some medicine, her friend quietly left. Later, Clive and Ravi arrived, and Clive concluded that Mike was behind the recent murders. Olivia told Ravi that her best friend now knew about her being a zombie. The drummer, having left the police station, arrived at the hotel Carl had mentioned, but Carl wasn't there. Just then, the door slammed shut. Major, posing as a health inspector, arrived at Blaine's butcher shop. He disguised himself so well as Blaine that no one suspected anything. After returning, Major searched online for ways to kill zombies and secretly bought a lot of weapons. He was clearly preparing for a big confrontation. Major went outside the butcher shop to observe, but was caught by Blaine's minion. Before he could be interrogated, Olivia's brother showed up for a job interview. After learning about his relationship to Olivia, Blaine took a sinister interest in hiring him. Meanwhile, the drummer, using her remaining strength, managed to call the police. But by the time they arrived, the drummer was already dead. To investigate her cause of death, Olivia consumed the drummer's brain. Meanwhile, Ravi was thrilled. He had managed to cure the zombie rat again. With a few months of observation and testing, maybe Olivia could return to normal. But Olivia didn't want to wait that long. She had had enough of being a zombie. The colleague reluctantly gave her the last 2 doses of the cure. Just then, Olivia experienced a flash of the drummer's memory. In the vision, the drummer was rifling through the killer's wallet. Olivia quickly figured out what had happened and shared her thoughts with Clive. The killer had previously put the evidence USB drive from the beverage company into his wallet. The beverage company had murdered several children to retrieve the drive. Together, Olivia Olivia and Clive decided to check out the beverage company. Inside the company, the CEO and the new head of R&D were watching surveillance footage. It turned out that the killer, now a zombie, had come to the company and killed the head of R&D, but this didn't stop the CEO from pushing for further product development. When Olivia and Clive confronted the CEO, he claimed to have fired the person years ago and then started playing the cops in circles. Just then, Clive received a call about someone using Carl's credit card to buy gas, so they rushed to the gas station to check the footage. The footage showed Carl trying to send a distress signal, clearly controlled by someone, likely from the beverage company. But there were no other clues, so they returned to the police station. Meanwhile, Ravi found a new lead, an old distress call from Carl. Carl had said he was locked in the trunk of a car, and then the call abruptly ended with a scream. Following the signal, Clive quickly traced it to a junkyard and found Carl's phone buried in a pile of discarded tires, but Clive sensed something wasn't right. If the killer was planning to kill Carl, why would they let him keep his phone? They should have disposed of both him and the phone. Clive reviewed the surveillance footage from the intersection and, as expected, found a photo of Carl driving the car. It seemed Carl hadn't been kidnapped or locked in the trunk after all. This whole situation was something he had staged himself. Clive immediately issued a warrant for Carl's arrest. Meanwhile, Carl drove to a restaurant where he successfully completed a deal with people from the beverage company. As he walked out of the restaurant, 2 patrol officers approached his car. Carl quickly turned around, but then the car suddenly exploded. Terrified, he bolted. Clive and Olivia arrived on the scene and started questioning the homeless people on the street. They learned that Carl was carrying an orange backpack. Carl then hopped on a long-distance bus heading for the border. While on the bus, he eagerly started counting the money, but was shocked to find a tracker hidden among the bills. Realizing the danger, he pretended to need a bathroom break and rushed to get off the bus, only to be caught by the arriving police. Back at the police station, under intense pressure, Carl finally confessed. He revealed that a woman had offered $300,000 to have the USB drive from the killer's wallet. Greedy for the money, Carl had killed the bassist and the drummer, hoping to pocket the entire sum. Reluctantly, he handed over a backup of the USB drive to the police. Clive looked at the contents of the USB and was shocked. Inside were confidential files from the beverage company. It turned out that the beverage company had known that their drinks would cause violent outbreaks, but they chose to cover it up. That was unforgivable. With the case seemingly wrapped up, Olivia began to worry about Major again. Meanwhile, Ravi called to report that Major hadn't been home for at least 2 days. Blaine was pressuring Major for the missing brain. Despite the torture, Major refused to reveal that it was at Olivia's house. Just then, Blaine pushed Major's student into the room, and the student's brain had been completely removed. Major was horrified. Blaine checked Major's phone and found a text from Olivia. He then called Olivia, threatening to kill Major unless she handed over the missing brain. Olivia, prepared with a dose of zombie antidote, arrived at the agreed meeting spot and exchanged the brain for Major. But when she got closer, she realized it wasn't actually Major. It was someone else dressed like him. Meanwhile, Major, trapped, found a lighter in the student's pocket. He set the body on fire, drawing the attention of the zombie fat guy. Major locked the cold storage door and managed to escape. He rushed to his car, grabbed some firearms and grenades, and headed back to the butcher shop, ready for a full-scale confrontation. He showed no mercy, taking out the zombie minions one by one. Just as Major thought he had it under control, Blaine stabbed him in the abdomen. At that moment, a tricked Olivia arrived and shot Blaine. As he threatened and begged, he claimed that if he died, no one would know who the zombies in Seattle were, and it would become a true zombie world. Olivia hesitated, but then she heard Major calling for help. Following the sound, Olivia found Major barely alive. Blaine smugly revealed that Olivia was also a zombie and arrogantly boasted that his powerful friends would take care of her. Olivia, seizing the moment, injected the zombie antidote into Blaine. His wound immediately began to bleed. Olivia watched him writhe in pain. Not wanting Major to die, she reluctantly turned him into a zombie. The police chief received a report of the shooting at the butcher shop and arrived on the scene to find it rigged. He triggered a gas explosion that destroyed the butcher shop. Coincidentally, Olivia's brother was severely injured in the blast. Clive arrived, discovering bloodstains on the wall left by the police chief. He found 6 bodies, including the chief's, and noticed one person wearing the shoes of Major's student. Clive ordered his team to search for Major and conduct a gunpowder residue test. In the end, Major didn't die. He turned into a zombie. But instead of thanking Olivia, he scolded her for making decisions for him. Olivia, feeling helpless, injected the last dose of the antidote into Major. At the hospital, Olivia's brother urgently needed a blood transfusion, but only Olivia's O-type blood matched. Watching her brother in critical condition, Olivia sank into deep thought, not knowing what to do next. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.